My parents showed up at my apartment with a lawyer and said, all you need to do is sign this transfer papers and let your sister move in. So I replied, let our lawyers meet each other in court. This is long, but I need to get this off my chest. I work as a software engineer in downtown Chicago. 5 years ago, after living with roommates and eating ramen for years, I finally saved enough for a down payment on a 2-bedroom apartment. It's nothing fancy, but it's in a decent building with good security close to the L, and most importantly, it's mine. I spent another 2 years fixing it up, new appliances, renovated the bathroom, painted everything, built custom shelving for my home office. Every improvement was paid for by overtime hours and side projects. My younger sister, Emily, 22F, is the golden child, always has been. When I was working 2 jobs to pay for community college before transferring to a state school, she got a full ride to Northwestern. When I bought my first car at 20, a rusty Honda with 200,000 miles, she got a brand new Toyota Camry for her sweet 16. When I was living in a moldy basement apartment during my internship, she was decorating her luxury dorm room that my parents paid for because the regular dorms weren't good enough for their baby. I'm not bitter. Okay, that's a lie. I'm definitely bitter, but I've made peace with it. You know, that's just how our family dynamic works. I'm the responsible older brother who had to figure everything out himself, and she's the princess who gets everything handed to her. Fine, whatever. But last Sunday, my parents, William 56M and Barbara 54F, invited me over for dinner. Should have known something was up when Mom made pot roast. She only does that when she wants something. The whole dinner was weirdly formal. Emily was there wearing a dress like this was some kind of event. Small talk about work, the weather, Emily's upcoming graduation. Then over dessert, Dad cleared his throat. James, we need to discuss Emily's graduation present. I figured they wanted me to chip in for something. Last year, I contributed $500 to her spring break trip to Cabo because family helps family. I was already mentally calculating what I could spare this month. We've been thinking, Mom said, cutting her apple pie into perfect squares. Emily, starting her adult life, and housing is so expensive these days. Tell me about it, I laughed, thinking about my mortgage payments. Which is why Dad continued. We've decided the best graduation gift would be for you to transfer ownership of your apartment to Emily. I literally choked on my pie. Like actual coughing eyes watering the whole 9 yards. When I finally caught my breath, I managed to squeak out, I'm sorry. What? Mom smiled. That smile she does when she thinks she's being reasonable. Your apartment, sweetheart. You'll sign it over to Emily. She needs a good start in life, and you're established in your career now. You can easily get another place. I looked around the table waiting for someone to yell, April Fools, even though it was October. But they were all staring at me expectantly. Even Emily, who was nodding along like this, made perfect sense. You want me to give Emily my apartment? The apartment I bought that I'm still paying the mortgage on. That apartment. Don't be dramatic, Dad said, using his stern voice. It's not like you're using all of it. You live alone in a 2-bedroom. That's wasteful in this economy. Wasteful. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I use the 2nd bedroom as my office. I work from home 3 days a week. You can work from a coffee shop. Emily finally spoke up, examining her manicured nails. Lots of people do that now. It's trendy. I pushed back from the table. Are you all insane? Do you understand what you're asking? I have a mortgage. My name is on the deed. I've spent thousands on improvements. This isn't like giving her my old Xbox. Mom's face shifted to disappointment mode. James, family helps family. When you needed a car for your internship, didn't we help? You co-signed a loan that I paid every cent of. I shot back and you held it over my head for 3 years. That's different, Dad said dismissively. We were teaching you responsibility. Emily's graduating summa cum laude. She deserves to be rewarded with my Y apartment. The conversation devolved from there. Mom started crying about how I was breaking her heart and abandoning family values. Dad accused me of being selfish and materialistic, saying I cared more about things than my sister. Emily threw in that she had student loans to pay, conveniently forgetting her full ride-covered tuition, and her loans were from her living expenses in Chicago's trendiest neighborhoods. The kicker came when Mom pulled out her phone and showed me listings for studio apartments in my area. See, there are plenty of places you could move to. Some are even cheaper than your mortgage payment. Those are in Cicero, I protested. An hour from my office and their rentals. A little commute builds character, Dad said. The man who'd worked the same postal route for 30 years and never commuted more than 15 minutes in his life. I left, just stood up, grabbed my coat, and walked out while they called after me. My phone started buzzing before I even reached my car. Texts from Mom about how disappointed she was. Voicemails from Dad about family duty. Even Emily chimed in with a text saying I was ruining her graduation joy. But here's the thing that really gets me. They'd clearly been planning this for a while. Mom had those apartment listings ready. Dad had talking points about property transfer between family members. Emily wasn't surprised by any of it. They'd orchestrated this whole ambush assuming I just cave hand over my biggest accomplishment because they demanded it. I've been going over this in my head for days. Am I crazy? Is there some unwritten rule where successful older siblings owe their homes to younger ones? Because I've helped Emily plenty over the years. Textbooks, moving costs, emergency cash when she overspent on spring break. But apparently that's not enough. Now I need to literally give her the roof over my head. The worst part is, I know this won't end here. They're going to make this my fault. I'm the bad guy who won't help his sister. Never mind that they could help her themselves. They own their house outright and have considerable savings. But why should they sacrifice when they can guilt me into it? I don't know what to do. I love my family. But this is insane, right? Please tell me I'm not the bad one for wanting to keep the home I worked my butt off to buy. Update 1. 2 weeks later. OMG, you guys. I thought my family had reached peak insanity with their gift us your apartment demand. I was wrong. So wrong. After my first post, I took your advice. I sent a group text clearly stating that my apartment was not and would never be Emily's graduation gift and that the subject was closed. I suggested some actually reasonable graduation gifts. I'd be happy to contribute to first month's rent on her own place furniture, even a cruise. Normal gifts. The response was immediate and brutal. Mom called me crying, saying I was crushing Emily's dreams. Dad sent a long email about how he and Mom sacrificed everything for us kids, and I was spitting in their faces. Emily posted passive-aggressive Instagram stories about fake family and people who forget where they came from. I ignored it all, figured they'd eventually realize I wasn't budging and move on. Then Thursday happened. I was working from home when I heard familiar voices in the hallway. I peer out my peephole and see my parents, Emily and Margaret, my building manager, standing outside the unit 3 doors down. My blood ran cold. I opened my door just as Margaret was unlocking the vacant apartment. She smiled and waved. "Oh, James, perfect timing. Your family mentioned their apartment hunting. I'm showing them 4B just renovated, same layout as yours but with the updated kitchen." My mother, that master manipulator, beamed at me. "Hi, sweetheart. We thought we'd look at different floor plans to understand what features work best for Emily's needs." I stood frozen as they toured the apartment. Emily was taking photos. Dad was asking about square footage. Mom was checking water pressure. They were acting out this whole charade, but I knew exactly what they were doing. After Margaret left, they descended on my apartment like vultures. Didn't even ask to come in, just walked past me like they owned the place, which apparently they thought they soon would. Mom immediately started her comparison. "Oh, see, the updated kitchen in 4B is nice, but I prefer your backsplash, James. And your view is so much better, Emily. Wouldn't you love waking up to this view?" Emily walked around my apartment like she was mentally arranging furniture. "I'd put my desk here," she mused, standing in my office. "And this would make a great walk-in closet. I work in here," I said flatly. "Well, not after July," she replied like it was obvious. That's when I snapped. "Get out, all of you." "No." Dad puffed up like an angry rooster. "Don't you dare speak to us that way. We're trying to have a civilized discussion about transitions. There is no transition. This is my home. Mine that I pay for. What part of that don't you understand? The part where you're so selfish you'd rather have empty space than help your sister succeed." Mom spat, her fake sweetness gone. I physically herded them to the door. Mom called me ungrateful. Dad said I was no son of his. Emily took more pictures on her way out, saying she wanted to remember the layout for later. But wait, it gets worse. The next morning, Margaret called me. My parents had asked her some seriously concerning questions during their tour. Specifically, what's the process for transferring ownership between family members? Are there HOA restrictions on gifting units? Can they get a copy of the building's bylaws? What are the penalties for late HOA payments? Checking if I was in good standing. Could they schedule a building inspection for the new owner? Margaret, bless her professional soul, told them all such matters would require the current owner's participation and consent. She also found it odd they were asking about transferring ownership when they were supposedly just looking for a rental for Emily. "James," she said carefully, "I don't want to pry, but is everything okay? Your parents seemed very interested in your specific unit, not the available ones." I gave her a brief rundown, and she was horrified. She immediately noted in my file that no one except me had authority to make any decisions about my unit, and she'd informed the front desk to not give out any information about my apartment or account to anyone. But the manipulation campaign was just getting started. Within 24 hours, I was getting calls from relatives I hadn't heard from in years. Apparently, my parents had put out the word that I was hoarding resources while poor Emily was facing homelessness after graduation. Aunt Patricia called to remind me that family wealth should be shared. Cousin Jennifer texted that I was setting a bad example for her kids about generosity. Even my grandmother called, though she seemed confused about the situation. Mom had told her I owned multiple properties and was refusing to share even one with Emily. The only voice of reason was Uncle Richard, Dad's brother. He called to tell me my parents were out of their minds and to stand firm. Then he dropped this bombshell. This isn't the first time they've pulled this crap. Remember when your cousin Michael bought that boat? They tried to guilt him into giving it to your dad because he'd always dreamed of having a boat. Took months of drama before they gave up. Armed with this information, I did what any reasonable person would do. I prepared for war, changed my locks even though they didn't have a key. You can never be too careful. Installed a Ring doorbell, put a security camera in my hallway-facing window, documented every text, email, and voicemail, consulted with a lawyer friend who confirmed that while they couldn't force a transfer, I should keep documenting everything in case they escalated. And escalate they did. Emily started posting on social media about how some people forget that their success is built on family support, and how grateful people share their blessings. She posted photos of my building with captions like, "So close yet so far," and "When family lets you down, broken heart." Mom switched tactics to health guilt. Suddenly she was having stress migraines and heart palpitations from the family Discord. Dad sent me an article about how adult children who don't support their families die younger. I wish I was making this up. The most infuriating part, they could easily help Emily themselves. They own a house worth $400,000 outright. They have retirement savings. They take 2 vacations a year, but no, their retirement is sacred, while my present should be sacrificed. Yesterday was the final straw. Emily texted me that she'd already told her boyfriend's family she was getting an amazing downtown apartment as a graduation gift, and now she looks like a liar. She actually blamed me for her lie. I'm exhausted, I'm angry, I'm disappointed, but I'm not giving up my apartment. They can create all the drama they want. I'll die on this hill in my apartment that I paid for with my money from my job. Thanks for listening to this insanity. I'll update again when they escalate further because something tells me this isn't over. Update 2, 1 month later. I need a drink or therapy or both. Definitely both. So remember how I said my family couldn't possibly escalate further? I was naive. So freaking naive. First, let me address the graduation situation. Emily's graduation was 2 weeks after my last update. I decided to skip it after everything that happened. I know some of you said I should go and hold my head high, but I couldn't stomach sitting there pretending we were a happy family while they plotted to steal my home. Instead, I sent Emily a graduation card with a $500 check, my original planned gift before this apartment insanity. She cashed it within 24 hours. No thank you, no acknowledgement, just took the money and ran. Classic Emily. The family explosion was immediate. My phone looked like a Christmas tree with all the notifications. How dare you miss your only sister's graduation? You're tearing this family apart. So selfish you can't even show up for one day. My favorite was from Aunt Patricia. Your absence was noticed and spoke volumes about your character. Yeah, lady. And what does trying to steal my apartment say about theirs? But the real circus started last Saturday. I was enjoying my coffee in my apartment when the doorbell rang at 8 a.m. Through my new security camera, I saw my parents, Emily, and a stranger in a suit. Every instinct screamed danger, but I was curious. What fresh hell was this? I opened the door but didn't invite them in. Can I help you? Dad stepped forward, chest puffed out like he was about to deliver some grand proclamation. James, this is Mr. Peterson, our attorney. We need to discuss the apartment transfer. I'm sorry. There, what Mr. Peterson, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else, extended his hand. Mr. Thompson, I'm here to help facilitate the property transfer your parents have arranged. I didn't shake his hand. What property transfer? Mom jumped in using her reasonable voice. Don't be difficult, James. We've had all the paperwork drawn up. All you need to do is sign and this whole unpleasantness can be behind us. May I come in? Mr. Peterson asked. This would be better discussed sitting down. Against every screaming instinct, I let them in. I wanted to see how far they'd take this insanity. They sat in my living room, on my couch I'd saved for months to buy, and Mr. Peterson pulled out a folder. Inside were actual legal documents, real official-looking property transfer papers with my name and Emily's name. As you can see, Mr. Peterson explained clearly reading from mental notes. The transfer is straightforward. You'd be signing over full ownership to Emily Thompson with an effective date of July 1st, giving you time to make arrangements. I looked at the papers, then at him, then at my delusional family. And what makes you think I'd sign these? Mr. Peterson frowned. I was told this was a family agreement that just needed formalizing, that you'd already agreed to gift the property as a graduation present. Did they mention I've refused this multiple times, that I've explicitly said I will never give Emily my apartment? The poor man's face went through several expressions before settling on uncomfortable realization. He turned to my parents. You told me Mr. Thompson had agreed to this transfer. He will, Dad said firmly. He just needs to stop being stubborn and remember his family obligations. That's when Emily decided to drop her own bombshell. I already told my roommates I'd have a place by July. I can't go back and tell them it fell through. Do you want me to be homeless? You told people you were getting my apartment. I couldn't believe the audacity. She rolled her eyes. Mom and Dad said it was happening. Why would I think otherwise? This is so typical of you, James. Always making things difficult. Mr. Peterson started packing up his papers. I think there's been a significant misunderstanding. Property transfers require willing participation from both parties. Without Mr. Thompson's consent, these documents are meaningless. Mom immediately turned on the waterworks. James, please. We're just trying to help Emily start her life. Why are you being so cruel? Because it's my apartment. I stood up. My name on the deed, my mortgage payments, my renovations, my home. What part of this aren't you getting? Dad stood up too, getting in my face. Family helps family. If you can't understand that basic principle, maybe you're not part of this family anymore. Then, I guess I'm not, I said quietly. The room went silent. Even Mom stopped crying. Emily's mouth fell open. I think until that moment they really believed I'd eventually cave. Get out, I continued. All of you, and don't come back. Dad's face turned purple. You ungrateful. Get out, they left, but not quietly. Mom wailed about her broken heart. Dad muttered about disowning me. Emily announced I was dead to her. Mr. Peterson apologized to me on his way out and handed me his card, suggesting I might want my own legal representation if they continued this behavior. That was last week. Since then, I've had a complete security system installed. I changed my locks again. Paranoid maybe, but better safe than sorry. I put up additional cameras covering all approaches to my door. I gave Margaret and building security photos of my family with instructions. They're not allowed in without my explicit permission. I met with my own lawyer who sent a cease and desist letter after they showed up at my workplace. Oh yeah, they showed up at my workplace. Monday morning, I'm walking into the office building and there they are in the lobby. Security wouldn't let them up. Thank God for badge access, but they caused enough of a scene that my boss asked if everything was okay. The family harassment has expanded too. I'm getting messages from relatives I haven't seen since I was 10 about how I'm destroying the family and abandoning my principles. The narrative they're spinning is that I'm a millionaire with multiple properties refusing to help my struggling sister. The reality that I'm a single guy with one apartment and a mortgage doesn't fit their victim story. The only silver lining has been Uncle Richard, who called to share more family history. Apparently my parents have a pattern of this behavior. I tried to guilt Cousin Michael into giving Dad his boat. Attempted to convince Aunt Susan to lend them her vacation cabin indefinitely. I pressured Grandma to change her will to favor Emily over all other grandchildren. I convinced my late Uncle Thomas to co-sign loans he ended up having to pay. They're leeches, Richard said bluntly. They find someone doing well and latch on. Stand your ground, kid. The latest development. I found out through another cousin that my parents are telling everyone I'm mentally unstable and being manipulated by a girlfriend. I'm single. Who's turned me against family? They're actually suggesting I need an intervention. An intervention for not giving away my apartment. I've started therapy to deal with all this. My therapist's eyes got wider and wider as I told the story. She actually asked if she could use it as a case study with details changed because it's such a textbook case of narcissistic family dynamics and financial abuse. I'm tired, Reddit. I'm so tired. Part of me wants to sell the apartment just to spite them. They can't have what doesn't exist. But why should I give up my home? Because they're insane. I'll update again if anything major happens. For now, I'm sitting in my apartment drinking wine I bought with my money, trying to figure out how I became the villain in their twisted story. Final update 3 months after original post. This is it. The final chapter in this insane saga. Grab a drink because you're going to need it. After my last update, things went eerily quiet for about 2 weeks. No texts, no calls, no surprise visits. I should have known they were planning something. The calm before the storm, as they say. Then Emily called. Not a text, not through a family member. She called me directly crying. Real tears, not the crocodile tears she'd perfected over the years. She begged me to meet her, said it was urgent, and she was sorry. Against every piece of advice from my lawyer therapist and basic common sense, I agreed to meet her at a public cafe. Emily looked terrible. Bags under her eyes, hair unwashed, wearing sweatpants, a far cry from the polished princess I was used to. She sat down and immediately broke down. James, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You were right about everything. I stayed silent, waiting for the catch. Mom and Dad, they're in trouble. Bad trouble. They're going to lose the house. And there it was, the manipulation tactic I'd been waiting for. But Emily continued, and what she said next genuinely shocked me. They took out a second mortgage like a year ago. They invested it all in some cryptocurrency scheme Uncle Dennis told them about. They lost everything, almost $200,000. I stared at her. You're joking. She shook her head, pulling out her phone to show me screenshots of bank notices she'd found at their house. Foreclosure warnings, legal notices, the works. That's why they wanted your apartment, she whispered. They figured if you gave it to me, they could move in with me or convince me to sell it and give them the money. They told me last week when I asked why they were so obsessed with getting it, and you just went along with it. She started crying again. I know I'm horrible. I've always gotten everything I wanted from them. When they said you'd give me your apartment, I believed it. I expected it. God, James, I'm 22 years old, and I expected my brother to just hand over his home because Mommy and Daddy said so. What kind of person does that make me? I didn't answer. We both knew what kind of person that made her. There's more, she continued. They've been telling the family you have investment properties, that you're some secret millionaire. Aunt Patricia thinks you own 3 buildings. Grandma thinks you're a landlord with dozens of tenants. They made up this whole narrative to justify trying to take your apartment. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. Because next week they're planning to come to your apartment with more family members. Like a lot of them. They're calling it an intervention, but really, they're hoping to pressure you into signing. Uncle Dennis is bringing his lawyer friend, who apparently knows how to expedite family transfers. They think if enough people show up, you'll cave. I felt sick. My own parents were organizing a mob to steal my home. Emily reached across the table, not quite touching my hand. I know I don't deserve anything from you. I've been a spoiled brat my whole life, but you're my brother and this is wrong. I wanted to warn you. 2 days later, my parents showed up at my workplace again, but this time they didn't come alone. They brought Uncle Dennis and Patricia and 3 cousins. They told security that they were there for a family emergency and caused such a scene that security called the police. I had to leave a client meeting to deal with it. In the lobby of my professional workplace in front of my colleagues, my father screamed that I was letting them become homeless while I lived in luxury. My mother collapsed dramatically, claiming chest pains. Aunt Patricia kept yelling about family values and calling me a disgrace. The police arrived and dispersed them, but the damage was done. HR called me in to discuss the situation. My boss was understanding, but made it clear this couldn't happen again. I was mortified. That night I made a decision. I called Uncle Richard and asked for his lawyer's contact. The next day I filed for a restraining order against my parents. I included all the documentation, the harassment, the workplace incidents, the attempted fraud with Mr. Peterson, everything. The hearing was last week. My parents showed up with their own lawyer paid for by Uncle Dennis. I learned later. They tried to paint me as an ungrateful son who'd abandoned his family in their time of need. The judge wasn't buying it. When the judge saw the fake property transfer documents and heard about them bringing a lawyer to my home to pressure me into signing, his face went stone cold. He granted the restraining order immediately. My parents can't come within 500 feet of me, my home, or my workplace. The courtroom erupted. Mom screamed that I was killing her. Dad yelled about me. They had to be escorted out by bailiffs. It was the most embarrassing moment of my life, but also strangely liberating. The aftermath was swift and the extended family is completely divided. Some think I went too far. Others have reached out to say they had no idea how bad things were and support me. Uncle Richard revealed that my parents have been borrowing money from various family members for years, always with sob stories and manipulation. A grandma called me directly for the first time in years. Turns out she never thought I was a millionaire landlord. She was confused why everyone kept telling her that and was worried I'd gotten involved in something shady. And the cryptocurrency investment was apparently an obvious scam that Uncle Dennis fell for first and convinced my parents to join. They leveraged their paid-off house for a get-rich-quick scheme. As for Emily, she's been going to therapy and working 2 jobs to support herself. She sent me a long letter apologizing for her entitlement and acknowledging how messed up our family dynamics were. She's not asking for anything, not even forgiveness. She says she needs to earn her own way for once in her life. I helped her in one small way. I referred her to a friend who was looking for an entry-level marketing assistant. She got the job on her own merit. We're not close, may never be, but I can respect that she's trying to change. My parents' house was foreclosed on last month. They're living with Uncle Dennis now, apparently making his life miserable with their demands and expectations. He's already reached out to other family members trying to rehome them. Karma's a thing, isn't it? I still have my apartment. My apartment. I've redecorated a bit, trying to reclaim the space from all the negative memories. Margaret still jokes about the family drama of the century when she sees me. My therapy is ongoing. Turns out, growing up in a family where love is transactional leaves some deep scars. The restraining order stands for 2 years. I haven't heard from my parents since the hearing, though I know they're still spreading their version of events to anyone who listen. That's fine. The people who matter know the truth. To everyone who followed this journey and offered support, thank you. Your comments helped me realize I wasn't crazy, that what they were doing was abuse, not love. To anyone dealing with similar family manipulation, please know that no is a complete sentence. You don't owe anyone your accomplishments, your home, or your future, regardless of shared DNA. I'm keeping my apartment, I'm keeping my boundaries, and for the first time in my life, I'm keeping my peace. Thank you for everything, Reddit. I'm finally free.